Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to Raising Excellence, the most important 90 minutes of your day. Hello, I'm Michael, the MC and Opportunity Ambassador for today's show. And today's show's title is Transitioning Grief and Loss Lessons Learned. With me today is my fabulous co host. Starting off is Agnieszka, our psychosomatic illuminator.
Hi, everybody.
Willow, our trauma consultant.
Hi, everyone.
And Dennis, our freedom facilitator. Oh, I didn't hear you, Dennis.
Dennis has no sound, suddenly.
Greetings and blessed love, beautiful people. Sorry.
Much
There
better.
we go. So this is actually a kind of a continuation from the show that we had last night, which was Agnieszka's Spiritual Revolution show that's done on Tuesday evenings. But Agnieszka, why don't you explain what we're doing, please?
So, Spiritual Revolution is a show that looks deeper at more esoteric aspects of human psychology, not like raising excellence. And I invited, let's back up. Michael suffered a loss last week, a personal loss, somebody very, very close to him who passed away. And to honor that person and to honor his experience with that transition, I asked him to be my guest on Spiritual Revolution, to share his experience and to really talk about the impact and the lessons learned and the conclusions that as he was processing it throughout the weekend, he was drawing some very, very specific conclusions. And those conclusions can be valuable for all of us. So do you want to tell us a story about the lady in question, Michael? Or would you like me to?
Yeah, why don't you do that, please?
All right. So Michael was dating a lady for a couple months, and then things started going a little bit awry, and she passed away about a week or two later from what appears to be a suicide. So it's a very complex situation. And
Okay.
Sorry.
That's a very.
I'm like, which direction do I go? How do you? Yeah, where do you want me to go with this?
Well, I think there's well, being that we're trying to be upfront and transparent with our audience, and certainly, I think we're trying to be real about the experiences that we're having, or at least I'm trying to offer that as a way that our audience can see how genuine and transparent we are, and how we're genuinely trying to get across that what we think is important and what we're covering on this show is important to our audience's quality of life. And this is just I think one of those opportunities in which life gets a little bit real, and here's an opportunity to demonstrate to those of the people that have followed us how important what we're doing is to improving quality of life and dealing with problems that I think most of our audience is probably at some time experienced or possibly has some relative understanding of, I guess. But the bigger picture, I think.
What's the biggest lesson that you learned this week?
Practicing what we're preaching.
Yes. What's the biggest lesson that you learned this week? What was your biggest takeaway or from this experience?
Well, I would say, have knowledgeable people around you that are trustworthy and willing to listen. And certainly in my circumstance, I've got a great network. I think certainly you guys are my first line of defense when it comes to some of the things that relate to psychology and my own mental well-being. I think that's certainly a very important lesson, and it really has been very powerful for me to have you guys. You've kind of been in the background, understanding what's going on with me, but uh, it's been really a great experience in that regard. I really feel strongly about each of you as far as the advice that you give me and how it's related to kind of get me through this circumstance, because it is definitely one of probably the most troubling situations I've encountered, because it was such a up and down thing. I really thought things were going well, and then all hell broke loose, and it just kept getting worse. I thought it wasn't going to get any worse. I thought, hey, I'm kind of leveling out here, and maybe we're gonna, over time move in a better direction. But obviously that didn't happen. But then there's also kind of these unique things that come up, and to me, I think recording magical moments is one of those things that I like to journal about, and so I like to kind of keep track of when things are kind of like little magical things happen, and there's been a lot of magical things happening.
So what are some of the magical things that happened?
Well, some of the kind of unique things. I mean, like the rose bush has kind of become one of those go-to magical
Tell us
things.
about the rose bush.
Have to
Rose bush. I
explain.
don't think these guys have heard about it. The other guys heard about it, but these
As,
guys haven't heard about the rose bush.
as a matter of fact, I did a little video on my BitChute channel just on the rose bush today, because it just keeps blossoming more and more blossoms keep happening, and
But
it's turning
hang on,
into
back up to the beginning. What
a
about
gorgeous bush.
where did you get the rose bush? Tell us the story.
Well, as kind of a parting gift, and I'm not sure, honestly, I feel like there was, uh, it was kind of a unique situation in itself, because when the day that gift transpired, and Agnieszka's got a firsthand experience on that particular one, but because she was here, but it was probably not a good day, because there was some animosity taking place, and uh, but
But she still brought you
uh,
this gift, two
she
rose bushes.
she brought me a couple. She brought me a couple gifts. One of them was, or two of them were, two rose bushes, which in parting, she said something along the lines that if you can take care of these plants, maybe you can take care of some pets, and maybe that will lead you to something else. But I kind of said, yeah, that's a very healthy thing. I'll take these rose bushes and I'll take care of them. We'll see how that goes. And subsequently, a few days transpired, and we found out that she had passed away. And then that 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 day, as a matter of fact, because I didn't find out until the day after, but that morning of that day, the rose
So a few
bush
hours passed.
didn't have any buds, but it blossomed. There was a particular bud that blossomed, and it was a nice big flower. And to me, that was, I didn't know it at the time, but it was like very unique. And then later on, I found out that she had passed away the day before.
Yeah, it was very interesting. The rose bushes lost all their flowers when they were being transplanted, which is normal. And then they had a few days in this pot, and one of them really flourished, and the other rose bush died, and it became black, like very quickly. The whole rose bush became black. And so they're sitting in this big plant pot right side by side, this big green lush bush and this dead decrepit thing. And I think it's an interesting simile or analogy to the state of the mind of the person that gave you the rose bushes, right? Because she was a beautiful soul, and the blossoming bush certainly does represent her, but at the same time there was that dark quality that eventually led her to making that decision that she made. So,
Yeah.
and with the blossoming just a few hours after she passed, it's symbolic. I think now the rosebush has exactly as many blossoms as she had years of life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is
It's
interesting
another unique little
because it's like
characteristic.
in 4 days there are 32 blossoms on this bush. It's quite interesting.
Yeah. But I have been talking to the bush a lot.
That helps with the blooming, right? It's like the most prolific rose bush.
What else am I going to talk to?
What about us?
Well, I've been talking to you too, but I've also been talking to the bush.
Well, it deserves it. The rose
But
bush is good.
to some degree, each of you guys have given me advice that I thought was pretty unique in a lot of ways. There were certainly things that you pointed out to me, Agnieszka, that I had not really saw in myself prior to that. I know there was some things about the stuff that I kind of knew about, but there was other things that I didn't know about, and certainly Willow has
Hang on.
given me
So
some
we've all been
wisdom.
counseling you for last week or whatever. Without revealing anything too personal, can you tell our listeners the one idea or thought that each one of us gave you that was most profound, that has affected you most profoundly?
Uh, yeah, I suppose I could do that. Um, you know, uh, well, I was talking about Willow, and her contribution has been, a lot of the just kind of understanding like how trauma manifests itself and how that kind of in a lot of ways can look totally irrational, go against everything that seems to make sense, and you know how to basically just deal with that, and so that's definitely valuable stuff. And then what Dennis said the other day, we were talking Sunday, and he then provided me with some more reference material and a couple books and stuff like that. I've been listening to one of those books called The Journey of the Souls, I think is the name of that book.
Yeah.
Dennis?
Yeah, Journey of Souls. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and that book kind of talks about kind of some like hypnosis um, sessions with people that have had like past life regressions and that sort of thing, and kind of their experiences with transitioning into and I don't expect everybody to believe it, and that honestly, even Dennis said to me, it doesn't really matter if it's true or not. It's one of the possible solutions, or it's possible. At least it's possible. And to me, that was enough to make me feel much better about the circumstance, because I think when a lot of people deal with death, certainly it's very traumatic, and it's kind of final in a lot of people's minds, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the way that you take that perspective on. And so in this particular book, it talks a lot about um, past lives and the idea of multiple lives and how that works. And I thought it was incredibly credible. But in addition to that, I thought it was very positive. And so, man, I'm telling you, the first probably hour I listened to that, I could not stop crying, honestly, because it was tears of joy. And Agnieszka, you've been right here, so you've kind of gone through the thick of it with me. And honestly, when it when that whole situation started, it was very embarrassing to me because I didn't, certainly when I'm welcoming people to the house, first thing I don't want is like drama and my own problems being like, put in front of everybody else. And so to some degree that was what transpired. Agnieszka, could have basically said, I'm getting the hell out of here. And that's not what she did. She kind of stuck with me through the whole thing. And, it wasn't pleasant, but, in the end, um, she was right by my side, helping me out, giving me advice. Every time I needed some advice, I got it.
Thank you. So what about our listeners? What can they get out of your experience? What is the one thing? Okay, so for me, hang on. So all these conversations that we've had over the last week, for me, the most important are the two things. What Dennis said about this moment is perfect, and this moment is perfect, and every moment is perfect, and that whole I'm gonna live for the both of us now. That Carol says in her thing, because that's a really powerful thought or idea.
Well, I think the biggest thing that she did for me is she really kind of woke me up to living again and
Resuscitated you.
being happy, loving myself to some degree. I still got some issues with that, of course, but I feel a lot stronger about myself um, from this experience, and that I'm very grateful for. And as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to honoring her memory and the life that she led, and she uh, she was troubled. She was, what a lot of people would consider a troublemaker in a lot of ways, but to me, that's kind of how I look at myself as well. And troublemakers could be trouble for people that want status quo, but for people that want to improve, um, that's what you need. You need troublemakers, because it's pointing out the things that could be better. And I definitely feel like I got something out of that. But the thing that we shared the strongest, I think, was a love for Acapulco. And she certainly, she's an Acapulqueño, Acapulqueña, and she loved this place. She knew everything about this place. She knew a lot of things that most people don't know about this place, and it's probably the hardest thing to let go of is all the cool things that you knew about here that we're never going to have access to. There's so many people in my circle of friends that have visited Acapulco that have some unique experience because of her. Um, that I'm grateful for as well. But I guess that's going to be one of the things that we'll probably be sharing for the rest of the time that people come to Acapulco. And as long as I'm
Well,
here.
if she had all these good ideas and good places to visit, you should like maybe put together a list so that other people can benefit from her wisdom of
Yeah,
all your adventures and places you saw.
yeah, yeah, and that might be something that we can do on a regular basis. Just kind of come together and talk about those unique experiences.
or maybe even find an expert in each area. Not, you know, she knew so much, but they're on each of those places or whatever would have an expert that could educate us on it.
Yeah.
Like,
I would like to apologize to our listeners quickly. If the title doesn't show correctly for this show, we'll fix it later. It's Transitioning Grief and Loss, Lessons Learned. I'm not sure if it's showing or if it updated already. And on that note, Mike, I would like to commend you for the way you have been handling the situation. And I'm saying that from far physically, but I don't feel far, to you. And I really think it is amazing how you have been able to receive and gather the support that you just mentioned. And the only way, that would come to you or that would reach you is because you're open for that. And I don't think I would have been able to, share, even the books or the other things, or any of us would have been able to share our experience in a way that is, felt so deeply by you, if it wasn't for your openness and for the way, for the for the strong way and for the bravery that you show in this situation. Because I don't think anybody would, how would you say, it is something very hard to go through this situation in the first place, and it's even harder to go through it and not to shut down and not to withdraw in a situation like that. And I really want to commend you for that. That is something that really stands out and that I find very unique, because I've seen few people who are able to to open up under those circumstances, and if valuable support and help comes, then I certainly believe that you more than deserve that, because the bravery and the strength it takes to receive that and to be open to that is really something that I have not seen often. And according to the or in unison with the title of the show, which is Transitioning, so it seems to me that transitioning itself is really what's going on in this life, on and on. We transition on a daily basis, so we transition each day. There's day and there's night, there's sun, there's moon. You're transitioning this phase of grief and of loss. We transition phases in our lives. Sometimes they're a few days, sometimes it's months or years, and then there are certain points of where we shift and where like a new phase of our life starts. And then of course there's this large transition of transitioning this life in itself. And I was a few years back when I through a teacher of mine who taught me that death is not the contrary of life, but death is the contrary of birth. But both birth and death are part of life. Life is what encompasses really everything. So death in that sense is not the end of life, if you want to look at it from that
it's
perspective.
part of birth.
Yeah, and then even if you want to go along, with the books that you mentioned, the Journey of Souls, which goes into afterlives, and again, regardless if you believe in it or not, but just the idea, what if we would have passed, through lives many times before, and if there's many more to come, and just to step back a little bit and to look at it from that perspective. It gave me, not too long ago, it gave me a positive outlook on it, and it gave me the opportunity to maybe learn and to look at myself and to look at everything and everyone around me really with different eyes and with much more appreciation. And one thing that these moments of transition, whether they are within my family or students or other people that I might not even have known so closely, but they do give me every time deep appreciation for the moment and for life right here and right now. And they teach me to cherish the moments that we have right here and right now, because they're not granted, not to anyone, not to you, not to me, and we don't even know how many we have left. So I feel it is really powerful, like how you position yourself, because you open up yourself, you make yourself vulnerable, and it seems that that is certainly a huge challenge, and I feel you're mastering that with excellence right now. So I want to commend you on that. And I want to mention also some of the listeners that have been chipping in. Nick says hi. Then Shambhavi is there. She started writing. Mike, I came in late. I'm not sure of the whole drama. It doesn't matter. It sounds dramatic. I'm sorry for your loss. All come and go, but lessons remain. My heartfelt condolences. And she said, I feel your pain. And then Tony also is here. He says, hello. Thank you all for your amazing minds. Sorry for your loss, Michael. Never easy having loved ones pass. Memories and feelings, though, keep them eternally with us.
Nice. Beautifully said.
It's the transitioning really that stays, right? Things come and go, but the passing of them, the coming and going is what really stays with us.
Yeah. Well, number one, thank you so much. I appreciate your words, Dennis. I feel, it's, we've really become tremendous friends. And, I really feel like this experience that we've had here with Raising Excellence has been one in which it's been so important to my improvement, and the person that I'm becoming is so much closer to realization today because of you guys being a part of my life, and us working together on putting this show together. And I feel like we're practicing what we're preaching on a weekly basis, and man, we've been so diligently pursuing this idea of kind of this show and what it could be for other people. And we're just saying that we know it's going to work. It's going to work. People are going to catch on. And I think we're getting there. I think it's getting better. But in this particular situation,
I think it's working perfectly just the way it is.
Well, we'll see. I think there's more to come.
We're coming up on our 1-year anniversary in a couple weeks here. So,
but it is an example of something that I preach, and that's practice makes perfect, and you got to incorporate what you want into your daily lives, and I think that's kind of what we've been doing by doing this show, and I think it's definitely been impactful for me, and so I'm.
So wait, are you saying that
grateful.
Participating in exercises and exploring the ideas of the show helped you overcome this experience? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think it contributed to the experience. It made me a better person, in being able to address the problems that she had when I offered to help her. She had refused help before, and this time she said yes. Then the conversations we had, the level of honesty that we attained, I think, was definitely a result of a lot of the things I learned from this show. Certainly Shambhavi and the acceptance show, I think, was definitely one of those shows that I can definitely feel it impacted me in a way that was positive. But there's plenty of other things. Certainly a lot of the shows that we had in regard to loving relationships, I mean, the consistency lesson that we learned from the show that we did with Kurt and Willow, I think that was really another powerful lesson that I took and applied, and I think made that relationship much more powerful because of that.
Yeah. Willow, why are you so quiet today?
Just one of those days. Really tired today, and to be honest, there's not much that I can say. It's kind of a listening game at this point, and I haven't found a point that, needs to be like, oh, I have a label for that, or this is what that is, that I feel like would be helpful. So
Yeah, I definitely, that show that Kurt came on and talked about you guys' relationship, I think was incredibly powerful. His philosophy in regard to confronting, just confronting, I think was definitely something that I practiced as well. And, I think that was powerful in making uh, things much more honest.
when it gives you a goal instead of trying to run away from it, because that's, to be honest, that's what I do. If I'm not careful, uh, it just gives you a goal. Like, I know I have to confront this, and sometimes just having a goal and having an action to take next is all you can do, and the right step.
That reminds me of the of the holistic approach again, because situations like that affect us, or they did affect me in on all levels. Like, like I can I feel it in my body, I feel it, emotionally, obviously, and I feel it in my mind. So it's like, it's my entire being, and spiritually as well. Like, it's the entire being that is being affected by that situation in a very powerful and strong way. So it's like it's also something that shakes you up, that makes you aware of all that you are, in a way, in a very painful way. So, and then I figure, if a situation affects all of our beingness in such a powerful way, what would be the responses to that? How can we respond to that sensation of grief and of loss, physically, emotionally, mentally, and how can we position ourselves also, like, spiritually, in order to transition that moment in our life as well, not to not accept it, because that's obviously, as you pointed out already, that's like one of the basic things. Not to, like, close up ourselves and to try, build a wall around it, but to go into it. And I feel there's moments for all of that. There's moments and there's times where you have to protect yourself, and because it's overwhelming, you have to take it easy and step by step, and maybe you have to put up a wall for a time. But then also, if you're the one who construct the wall, you have the power to slowly take it down, and then process it. Or sometimes it might be good counsel to dive straight in, to go right in for it, and to feel that pain on every level, if it's physical, emotional, to go into the pain and to almost like marinate in it, in order to really, and then
Don't get stuck in it.
yeah, like, once you marinate in it and once you get the flavor in, then there's a time where you don't need to be marinating again, because it fulfilled its purpose, and then you can move on. But if you keep yourself away from marinating in it, and you don't get the flavor in, then you're still gonna have this, oh, I still didn't go through this process. But it's a process that needs to be done in order to get the flavor.
Dennis, can I ask you a personal question?
Sure.
So you were sharing about your nephew on Sunday who passed away, your brother's son.
Mm-hmm.
And so how did you and your family, Matt, deal with that? Because with every death that we experience, they're like, our loved ones teach us a lesson, even in passing, even pets teach us a lesson. But sometimes a death is so nonsensical and so pointless, like your 3-week-old nephew passing away. It's aggravating even, how like, that's so unfair. How could that be? And so what would be your suggestion to maybe deal with that or see that better?
I wouldn't dare to try to tell anyone how to react or how to deal with a situation like that, because it depends on the situation. There's none of that situation twice, even if it would happen, similar age and similar, but everyone is unique. So all I really can say is how I dealt with it from my perspective. But if that's the way that will work for somebody else, or if that's the best way, I could never say. But from my perspective, trying to exceed the the boundaries that are that are that are there, that are given to us in these physical realms, trying to step out of that of the small me, of the physical being, of the emotional one, of the mental one, and continuously reminding myself that there's something bigger, that there's a bigger picture, that there's a bigger box, there's that I can step out of, and to look at it from a larger perspective, and accepting the possibility that there is views and that there's perspectives that make sense, although I cannot perceive it. Like if I'm the little ant.
Hang on. Can you repeat that?
I was talking about accepting the possibility that there are perspectives that I cannot assume from where I am. Like if I'm the small tiny ant, who just crawled up like a little blade of grass, and I look at my surrounding, it might look, wow, like I'm way up there and I'm huge. But right in that position, I might not be able to climb the huge tree that is 2 yards beside me. But somebody might be sitting up there, maybe another ant or a bird, and his vision, his perspective is wow, far greater than the one I have. So while I might not be in a position, or while I might not have the possibility under my current circumstances to look at the things from above, from the branch of the tree, because I'm just down there, like in sitting on a blade of grass way down there, I could still be open to the possibility that there's a greater picture of things where it then from which it makes sense. So I'm not saying to build like a wishful dream or to assume something and to neglect what is impacting me in that moment, but I say to remain open for that possibility of a different view. And I say to feel the pain, because that's what you feel most likely in situations like that anyway. And if need be, if you feel that that's the time for it, to marinate in it and to feel it mentally, to go through the pictures, to go to all of it, to be with the family, to be with those who are close, to be in the moment and to see what is going on and what kind of shifts are happening between all who are there in the moment, and between and also in the one that is transitioning, or that has transitioned. Because I feel that on a soul level, if you want, so that those circumstances, these are powerful circumstances, when you transition like that, coming into this life and moving on to the next one, if you want, so, or leaving this life. So I pay much attention to who is present and who is doing what and who is positioning himself how, and I can see a lot of things happening. And so I say, be in the moment and feel what you feel, and take in the mental pictures that you get as well, the imagery, but also remain open that there might be a point of time, that there might be a situation and a view that I'm not able to perceive in this moment, but that will make sense, and that everything plays out the way it plays out, because that's just how it's meant to be. Which does not mean that it's not painful and that it's not terrible in the moment, but it just means that it's acceptance again. It is what it is, and it happens the way it does. And I'm crying, tears are rolling, and it's sad, and that also is okay in that moment. That seems to belong to life in that moment.
Thank you. Beautifully said.
That brought up something in regard to something else you said, Agnieszka, the other day. Like I was kind of pulling out some of the other experiences that I had about in my past life, as far as dealing with death and stuff like that.
Not in your past life, in your current life.
My current life, but in the past of this current life.
Yes.
And my thought was, that's kind of what I thought manhood was. I thought that, and probably one of the reasons that I went to the military was because I wanted to be a man, and I wanted to do the things that a man, is respected for, being tough, standing up for what's right, all that kind of stuff. And of course, like the ultimate kind of understanding of, or at least what the perception of an understanding of what courage is, facing death and not having fear, but really, I think that's completely wrong. You know, what most people have as a perspective of what manhood is completely wrong. And having courage is really kind of confronting the things that really do matter. Like when it comes to loving unconditionally versus having conditional love, for example, you know, that's really the courage. That's really the most courageous, brave thing that you can do is loving somebody unconditionally. And you know, and then like when that happens, that's also like being able to forgive people for their indiscretions and forgive people for their weaknesses, because again, it's like most people, when they're hurting others, they don't know they're hurting others. They just they think they're doing what they, they're really kind of displaying their own hurt by hurting others. You know, they're trying to communicate that they're hurt, and they're doing it through these these things that hurt others. And so to some degree, when that becomes clear, it is a greater awareness of understanding how much people are really suffering. And we've got a lot of suffering going on. There's a lot of suffering in the world. And certainly, like if you look at the world as it is today, the people that are the powerful ones are the ones that are creating this suffering. So what does that say about them? They've got some tremendous suffering going on that, you know, is why this is all being manifested. So, the biggest challenge, I think, certainly a lesson that I'm learning, is like loving unconditionally. What does that mean? How does that work?
It's not always
and really
just
being
that.
able to do that.
It's not always just that people are one way or another toward us. Sometimes people are benign, but our woundedness causes us to interpret their actions in a way that seems hostile or threatening or uncomfortable or offensive or whatever. And the person doing the action might not even have any idea that they're doing it.
Yeah.
So how do we support each other
Well, a lot of
in our
times
crazy?
they don't know they're doing it because they were taught that that's how you handle things. That's what was done to them. They've accepted it as normal. And healthy or healthier people do it too. It's not just bad people or people who are hurt and want to maliciously hurt other people. Good people do it as well. We're just as susceptible to this as anyone else.
Well, I was a child. I was an infant when my mother had the circumstance that my younger brother passed away. I'm 1.5 years old, and of course, she's distraught from that kind of stuff. She isn't trying to hurt me. She isn't trying to neglect me, but that's what I'm feeling. That's the experience I'm having as a little infant, and of course, that weighs on my perspective for the rest of my life, because those kind of like having that perspective equals some of the things that are going on with me that relate to the relationships that I have still yet to this day. And although now I'm kind of becoming aware of this, and then how I unwind that stuff, um, means that I don't necessarily have to experience that anymore. I don't have to cause pain in other people because I don't understand what's going on. But to me, or how that was embodied in my life, was I was constantly attracted to people that were neglecting me, to some degree, and that felt more honest, or that felt more comfortable than having a much more loving relationship where I thought, I can't trust that. That doesn't
What
feel
about
right.
what about having girlfriends who are just as wounded as your mom was after the loss of a child in various ways?
No, I think that's what I'm explaining. I think that's what I was looking for. That, or that's what I accepted.
Well, it's the example that you were shown of what love looks like. And I mean, people do the best they can. If that's what, you were introduced to as love, you search for it. We all search for familiar um, scenarios that make us feel more comfortable and at home.
Well, in regard to my my mother, I don't hold that against her. I understand she was suffering, and uh, there's there's nothing wrong with that. Loving someone unconditionally means kind of accepting and forgiving them for the things that happen, and uh, the, there's nothing wrong with that other than being able to understand it. And when you're an infant, it's pretty hard to understand a lot of things that are going on in the world. But as an adult, as Agnieszka suggests, you got to parent yourself. In a lot of cases, that means kind of addressing the problems that you're facing and understanding why it is that those things keep reoccurring in your life. Because that's another thing about the consistency thing. When there's consistent things that are going on in your life and they're consistently bad or consistently painful or consistently harmful to yourself or other people, those things need to be investigated. They need to be looked into. The thing is like what Dennis has said. The there's this beautiful perfection to the past that it has meaning if you can decipher it, and I think that's kind of one of the things that, like, as I was crying my eyes out in front of everybody else, and just the feeling that I got, or the thought that I had was, this may be a very painful moment, but it's going to be a beautiful story at some point. Like, it's going to be so powerfully meaningful to me somewhere in the future that I weathered that moment and became better because of it. That's what makes it beautiful.
I was very impressed with your maturity when you were talking about that and realizing that you weren't falling into the despair. You were saying, okay, I'm feeling despair right now, but I am not despair. So that was good job.
Well, and again, I think that's, it's a credit to this group of people that's around me that has taught me that, because I doubt I would have thought that, and just a few years earlier.
One huge lesson that revealed itself to me in the situation when I, not too long ago, when my sister passed on and transitioned, was that expressing your love and telling your loved ones and everyone else as well what you feel for them and that you love and appreciate them is such an important thing. And maybe even more so nowadays, where we're also occupied with our own drama and with a bigger drama that's playing out itself in the world, and we seem to forget, at least I felt that way, that I could have done a much better job in doing that while I still had a chance. And so I made that promise to myself that I was going to focus more on that and take that as one of the big lessons in that situation for me, to ensure that those around me how I feel about them. And when I now talk to my daughter, my son too, and I tell them and I try to assure them that there's nothing in this world that they can ever do that will make me not love them, then I feel, close to unconditional love. And when I would go even further is, I feel that true unconditional love means it really it is something within again. It's a realization within myself that I'm able then to apply to each and everyone around me. And I mean everyone, not just my son, my daughter, my wife, but everyone.
But us too.
Yeah, of course. Because I feel it is a relationship with divine, which is unconditional. If I recognize divine is expressing itself through me as well as to each and everyone equally around me. And that's a tough one, because you have people that, do harm and torture and kill and murder and all of that. But still, would any of that be if it wasn't divine wish, if it wasn't supposed to play out as it is? And then in every moment to be centered in that love, in that appreciation for divine, which is within yourself, within myself, within each and everyone, and to recognize that, that's part of the divine play. And I have love for that. I appreciate that. This is a positive place. This is a good place to be in. Although things are happening, looking really bad sometimes, and there's tears and there's suffering and there's pain, but still, like, I'm part of that, and I can have love for myself, for divine, for each and everyone. I feel that is really unconditional love. It is to have that perception of divine within myself and within everyone around us, and reminding others of the fact that they have value, that they are loved, and even though they're acting out and they do whatever they do, and even if I don't understand why they do it and what they do, but still there's something within them that I can appreciate, although they might be, the worst of the worst. And I feel in situations that I even mentioned in the last show where, I was working with or for, people who were like in really traumatic situations, or who were like in lockup or in prison cells for years, and I perceived and I saw how society or how others or the wardens or even their family disowned them, and wouldn't keep contact with them, and said, oh no, these are bad boys, and you can't do nothing for them, and there's a lost generation, and maybe this and maybe that. But if I would just open up even just a little bit for them, I could see, there's a victim in all of them as well, and there's a human being right there, and there's feelings, and there's probably everything that I have felt in my life as well in them, but they've made decisions that led to certain circumstances, and so the wheels are spinning. But still, I could find in the short time sometimes that I spend with them that there's humanity there, there's a connection there, there's divine there, there's a light within all of us. And it's a matter of asking the right questions, and it's a matter also of searching for it. And if you if you search, those shall find. And I feel if you're looking for answers, you will get answers if you ask intelligent question, or if you ask not only intelligent, but if you ask the questions in the right way, then the quality of the answers will reflect the quality of your asking and of your questions. And then those answers then, they offer the possibilities that I mentioned earlier. And then you have at least the assurance that, because if you paint things really dark, this shouldn't have happened, this was wrong, and you can't make sense out of it. If you do that, on one hand, don't you have the right also to paint it, overly bright? Because you don't really know. So if you don't know if it was because of this or because of that, at least you can assume both ways, if you like. So
I always say that you should imagine 5 different possibilities, right? Because you imagine a couple good ones, couple bad ones, one neutral one, and then at the end you're not committed to what it might have been.
Yeah. And then you acknowledge as well that you don't know. You can feel what you feel in this moment, but the more you try to know and to understand, I feel it seems to be a tendency. The more one understands that we really and truly don't know anything much at all, and that's an acceptance and an acknowledgement as well. Which doesn't mean that we should not search and try to understand, but it means also that at the end, there's a question mark. And while we're asking and trying to know, we might as well do it in a way that we feel good, because maybe this place is here for us to enjoy the most that we can. Anyway, although we have...
Maybe? What do you mean maybe?
I was looking for that reaction. Thank you.
Willow's just watching us today. I feel like she's a cat.
I am. I'm very, very tired, but the conversation is interesting enough. So,
We're keeping you just awake, just on this side of the wake.
yes. It has nothing to do with y'all. I'm a little out of it today. So,
Yeah, we know. Narcolepsy.
yeah.
It's all good. It's all good. Michael, is there anything else you'd like to touch on today? Because this show is really all about you, essentially.
Well,
I have a question while you think.
sure, go ahead.
Have you come across any techniques, or are you practicing maybe anything on a physical level that helps you at this time? Is there, earlier I mentioned that if it affects us on the physical, emotional, and intellectual level, what would be, is there a tendency, or what would be of, when you're under stress, under trauma, is there something in the physical realms that, that allow you to come out of it, or to process it in a better way, or to deal with it, or something that balances you out, or that harmonizes you, something, I don't know, some exercise, a technique that you learn? Because I know you've been exposed to quite a few amazing coaches, teachers, and guides. Is there anything that you remember, or something that you even practice in tough situations that help you to deal with them?
There's a lot of different things. I would say that one of the things that I was at the doctor recently, one of the local doctors here, and he was talking to me and my buddy Victor, and he was talking about healthy living, and he was saying, hey, when I get up, the first thing I do is I go out and I water my plants. And then he has like a light breakfast, and he kind of was describing this, and he was really talking to my driver Victor, because he doesn't eat very well, and consequently he's got some problems. Of course, he went through some different medical problems over the years that are kind of existing conditions, but he drinks soda, and I tell him, hey, why are you drinking soda if you but he in any case, I was listening to the doctor, and I was thinking about the watering plants thing and how positive that might be, but it just never applied to me up until it applied to me, and now, like, watering the plants is something that it is kind of a ritual of sorts that I'm enjoying a lot more, and it gives me that opportunity to kind of number one, kind of connect with nature, and that's another important thing I guess I'm taking away from this is, and the Agnieszka knows the situation I live in. She gets to experience it here, but we live in the jungle, so there's birds, there's bugs, oh man, you should have seen the butterfly got yesterday. It was
Blue
tremendous.
morpho. It was a blue morpho yesterday. It was trapped in the dining room, and Luna went jumping after it, the dog. And so I grabbed her because I didn't want her to hurt the butterfly. And then Michael had to catch it. Beautiful blue giant thing in his hands.
Yeah, it was
That's some
amazing.
good
It was probably the
symbology,
most-
isn't it, Dennis?
Wow, and you know the comment that just came in is asking a question that might be related to it, which is Shambhavi is asking, have you tried to contact her soul?
Well, I guess that's what I do when I'm talking to the plant.
Yeah,
Maybe that's what the blue morpho represented.
Say the butterfly does
That's-
represent transformation and change.
and it's also
Yeah.
it's an animal that it flies from bloom to bloom, from flower to flower, So isn't that life also?
And isn't it rare also or protected or something? Because Michael said he's never seen a blue morpho. Like I know what a blue morpho is because my mom has a story about it that she tells. But I mean, it's a South American butterfly that is protected, I think. So how did it end up in our dining room?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like this is one of those places where you're always seeing unique creatures and animals and stuff like that. We saw, I think when Agnieszka first got here, we saw this little bitty praying mantis. It was so freaking tiny you couldn't even tell what the hell it was.
But the shadow, its shadow was showing you what it was. It was cute. Oh, and this morning we saw a tiny little scorpion. It was this big.
Yeah, and it's like every day there's some kind of unique thing that nature, to me that is like the idea of abundance. It's just a reminder that like you just never, it just never gets old. There's always something new. Another thing that happened the other day was there's a big tree that shed all its leaves recently, but all the parrots seemed to like congregate in that thing. So there was like 20 parrots in that tree the other day, and I was saying, "Hey, Agnieszka, look at this! There's parrots over here," and they all went poof. All like 20 of them all just like jumped out of the tree and flew away. But it was I'd never seen anything like that before either. I've seen parrots here, but I've never seen like 20 parrots like bounce out of the tree all at the same time.
Of course, I talk to those parrots every morning, so maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah, that's probably it.
They sleep in the tree where I go when I walk the dog at 6 o'clock in the morning. They sleep in the tree, and I go about the same time they're about to wake up. And at the first day they all flew away, but now they kind of hop from branch to branch and look at me and go hi. So of course I talk back, so that's probably why.
So what do you tell them? What are you hiding about? Where's my breakfast?
No, every morning I say the same thing. I say, good morning, hi, good morning, hi. And they just reply, hi, 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 hi. Because, parrots are repetitious animals. So like when you talk to a parrot, if you want them to understand you have to repeat yourself. Otherwise, they won't think you're talking to them. I've had a parrot.
Maybe all they want to express is that they are high up in the tree.
Well, there
First
are
thing
some
in the
fruits
morning.
that
Well,
apparently there's some fruits that can be fermented that can kind of get animals
You
drunk.
high?
I don't know about
there are videos about that on
one of the
YouTube.
possibilities.
Because fruits ferment, fruits fall to the ground and ferment. And when they're fermented, some animals eat them and get drunk
Yeah,
on purpose.
I think I saw some monkeys, getting drunk on those.
Oh, not just monkeys, but yeah, lots of animals do that.
I was just reminded of a short video that I saw. It was a cannabis plant, and a squirrel had gotten into it and just torn up ate so many leaves. I don't even know what it really was trying to eat, but it was laying there.
It was laying.
like almost like comatose, but its eyes were open, and like they kept touching it, and it would just like it wouldn't move. It was so
macrame.
choked up. And I was like, man, this animal is probably terrified. It's probably like, oh my god, I can't move, and there is something giant standing over me, but I
That's
can't
something
move.
giant, a human.
I felt so bad for it, but all at the same time, it was the most hilarious thing I think I've ever seen.
And all the little thing wanted is that somebody brings it something to eat.
I don't think it wanted anything to eat
Some
after
cookies.
that. It was like,
Could you get me a cookie? If I could just talk.
Colleen is posting powerful conversations as usual. Grief is so different for everyone. Which is true too, right? Like we all perceive it in a different way and we deal with it in different ways as well.
Were you and Colleen together when your
Yeah,
nephew
well,
passed away?
You mean together like
Like dating or whatever.
yeah.
So it was her nephew too.
Hmm. Yeah, we're married then.
Anyway, Michael.
I was going to say, in regard to like manhood, one of the things that I probably didn't do very well was deal with death, because I just kind of in my past I've had that circumstance where I've had death right in the face kind of situations, and my response at that time was just be a man, just suck it up, don't worry about it, it's just one of those things you just got to deal with.
But that's not what a man is.
I didn't cry
Men don't
about
have to
it.
do
I
that.
didn't-
Men don't have
that's
to
not
carry.
dealing with it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, but see, he cried about it the other day. He told us some of the stories from the military where he had to like carry his friends' dead bodies and, deal with it like really face to face with death. Somebody he was just speaking to a few minutes ago. And that's hard. Like, you don't like, yeah,
See, the
real
thing is,
men
when you
deal
have
with
to
it,
do-
but it's not
when you
required.
have to do that, that's not dealing with it. That's pushing through. That's compartmentalizing it. It's numbing it out, putting it where it needs to go until you can deal with it later. That's a trauma response, and it's incredibly necessary. Sometimes it's not. This is why people go years and years and years until they reach a safe place, a safe environment, before they actually start acknowledging and feeling the full weight of their symptoms, because the body won't allow you to go through this unless it feels like you can, because otherwise it's another unbearable experience that you might die from in your mind. So I don't like putting the label of that's dealing with it, because it's not dealing with it. You're compartmentalizing. It's a trauma response to get you through until you can actually deal with the issue.
So
yeah, and in that regard, I think it was like one of those things where I just internalized like my big problems instead of trying to get other people to help me. I would just retreat and isolate myself and just not deal with it properly, not know how to deal with it, not be able to tell anybody about it, and because of that, I just continually suffered for years and years and years.
And you also it manifested in your body as self-neglect. You didn't feed yourself as well as you should. You didn't water yourself as well as you should. You didn't exercise as well as you should, because there was that badness. Like, essentially, how is that different from eating Comet? Right? I'm not saying I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean, right? Because on Sunday, hang on a second, Dennis, I just want to finish this thought. On Sunday, when you, like, it was almost like, so the way I've been thinking about it, it was another gift from Lou. Her passing allowed that blockage where all those deaths were stored inside your heart somewhere to break, and you were able to cry about it and tell us about all these horrible stories about, I had to do this in this time, I had to do this time. And it was good because it was a safe environment. We could hold the space for you and allow you to process those, at
Actually,
least in some level.
I have something to add to that I was I noticed earlier. Mike had said something that was intriguing, but I didn't know how to tie it in to this specific conversation. Remember when you said, Mike, that you never wanted to like have your issues come to the forefront in front of new people? It's like bringing drama, like presenting people with drama. Now this is a pretty common thing for people to label. I still do it myself, where I can't stand to be dealing with something in front of other people because I feel like I'm being dramatic, and I have my own set of issues around that. But I lost my train of thought a little bit. Agnieszka, you were saying, about
Gifts
okay,
from Lou.
yeah, you were saying that this is kind of a gift. A lot of people can't acknowledge their trauma because they have already labeled it as drama until something, for lack of a better word, I don't really know,
Worse.
worthwhile, like something worth being upset about, that seems rational. It seems irrational to be upset over, something that represents this deep trauma. But when it's like in your face, someone has passed away that's very close to you, no one's going to blame you. You know that even if you don't want to do it, no one's going to blame you for breaking down. It feels safe to do so. So a lot of times, yeah, I do agree with Agnieszka that this may have been a gift, because it allowed you the opportunity to acknowledge not only this trauma, but all of those other little traumas that previously you would have probably not brought
little.
up. I say little as
Not
in
little.
like in your mind,
Smaller,
but
yeah.
all the other ones in your mind that you've already labeled as dramatic. So you can't, like, you've already dealt with them, therefore you can't bring them up again, because it would be unreasonable in your mind to process that now. But it makes sense in the context of the trauma that you just suffered. To be
Think about our
reliving all of these
society.
and it gives you the release.
Think about our society. It's completely okay for a boyfriend to cry over his girlfriend, for a husband to cry over his wife, for a man to cry over his child or his nephew even. That's totally fine. But for a soldier to cry over another soldier is not okay. It's not acceptable. It's not socially acceptable in our society. You have to be tough. You have to be a good soldier, right?
I wouldn't say that's a social thing. I'd say that's a specifically military thing. The military.
But military is part of our society, right? It's sort of on the outskirts,
True.
But it's
not all of society, because if you're outside
No.
of the military, understanding that situation and hearing it, it would make perfect sense to you why you would
The
cry
person
over
would
your,
cry.
But when you're in the military, it's because of that training, that conditioning, that you're not allowed to process that. You have to compartmentalize that and put it somewhere else, because you have to be a soldier first before you can be a human. You're not a human. You're a soldier.
I think Dennis had something to say earlier.
Isn't that revealing? Because I was reminded about the current circumstances that most of us seem to be living under these days, and I found it very revealing that these don't seem to allow us to get together and to come together and to deal with the trauma and with the issues that we're facing as humans, on a daily basis, like the small and the large ones. But then after what you've said and what you learned out there is, if we need each other to overcome trauma, to overcome situations, traumatizing situations, and if we don't have the chance to do so, then that seems to reinforce or to put us in a situation where we are holding almost like a perpetuous drama, or a state where we have to push it aside because we're not in a safe place where we can work through things that be. And I just felt that this seems to be very interesting, because if we depend on groups, if we depend on peers in order to work through situations, and then yet for long periods of times that is being made ever more so difficult of getting together and of interacting in a normal way, then that certainly is not helping with dealing with trauma, and even giving us more drama at the same time, and more trauma too. And Colleen said, and that was a few minutes ago when we touched upon that, she said, yes, Agnieszka, our firstborn was only a few months old, so you can imagine how many plans the whole family had to watch the first set of cousins to grow up together. So so yeah, that hits home a lot if you're in the same or in a similar situation and you imagine, you know, you know, why this one, not that one, you know, or it could have happened right there to us as well, and it did in a way because it is close family.
Well, yeah, it did. It's your brother's child, so that's, I don't know. I guess my family is very close, so my cousins are like brothers and sisters almost to me.
No.
So it would be just as impactful.
And you see two of them come at the same time, almost exactly,
Yeah.
and then being together
Well, and
as
the
a family.
pregnancies, right, at the same time. So you have all these like, oh yeah, she's pregnant and she's pregnant or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. And right there, if it wouldn't have been for the family that was able to stand together and to be together those times, it certainly didn't make it fun, but it certainly would have been, can't even imagine how much more devastating it would have been if we would not have had each other, you know. And then, you know, because if one breaks down, there's another one, you know, who can keep it together and, you know, work through what has to be dealt with. And then, you know, this one needs a little time out and there's somebody else, and in the end, families together. And what seems very
but
true is,
physically, you weren't together. It was just on the phone, right? Because you were in Jamaica and they were in Germany at the time.
yeah, it has been, yeah, well, we were there, you know, very little time before. So yeah, just left. And then Tony just put in another comment. I'm fascinated in a way with death. If I look at the aspect of the wild or nature, each death basically guarantees life. As to what happens, like to our energy or our soul, that question there has only one way to find out. Don't get wrong. I love being here and being alive, but most questions can be answered with enough skepticism to come to a conclusion or truth, but death. What happens is an unanswerable question. The possibilities of non-physical or bound energy are endless.
Nice. I like Tony.
Yeah, I think that's you know, the book that Dennis mentioned, I've mentioned, I think earlier, is one in which really just kind of having a different perspective on what life, birth, death is, and how that might change your understanding of the importance of really the time that you have, the now is, you know, I think of Marcus Aurelius and him suggesting, you know, in meditations that you consider your death every day, you know, and that motivates you to like take the most aggressive efforts towards living your life as best you can today, because it is important. Like when you think that things are going to be the same way as they were today, as they are, or tomorrow is going to be the same as today, that's not always the case. And man, I've just been looking through my Facebook thing here. A couple people that I know have passed away. I think Walter Williams is another guy, you know, kind of a famous black economist, passed away today or yesterday. Um, you know, there's always things changing, and you know, to some degree, that death is the end of the relationship that we have with them. But on another level, it's it's not, or it possibly is not. I don't know. But you know, I think that the point is that you know, if we have a better understanding of honesty and truth and trust of each other, I think we can find better answers to the questions that are out there and collect better evidence uh, from the experiences that we can hone from other people that we trust, and you know, have honest conversations with. I think that's probably the most important thing that I think our lives can be about, is the experiences that we have ourselves and how we share those with other people that we love and respect.
It's a beautiful ending for this show.
And it does really invite us to go into the subtle nature of things, right? And not to only depend on our 5 or 6 or 12 senses, but to go beyond that and to oh wow, is there something more? So like you said, the relationship ended. Well, okay, it ended in what? In the physical, and what my hands and feet can feel, and what my eyes can see, and what my sense of smell can perceive. But is there more? Is there a connection that goes beyond that? Is there, when I close my eyes and if I concentrate, can I see her? Can I feel him? Can I be with him? It's like I have this still, even with my great grandmommy when she was around, and it's like when I close my eyes and I focus, and it's like I can't touch her, but she's there. I can feel the energy. It is as if she was right there. And with the other ones that transitioned as well, it is pretty much like that too. And then it becomes a joy almost for me to then, when I see a picture, a little reminder there, it's like, oh yeah, you're there, or you're here. And then of course it's a loss, but it's a loss only on one level of our beingness, and it's a loss nevertheless, and it's painful, and it's all of that. But there's other levels, and I feel strongly about that, and that's experiential for me. It's not like something I read in a book, but I experienced that there is a connection. There's still something there that has not been broken, that's unbroken, and that's there. And it's beautiful because and that was the second big lesson of what I shared earlier, when it happened with my sister. It was like, there can't be no bigger invitation to go deeper, to go beyond, what my eyes can see and what my hands can feel, because there is more than that. And so maybe that's just a way of trying to find beauty and trying to find the amazingness, the amazing part of life, even in the worst moments.
Again, beautifully said. I think Willow has to go now,
Yeah.
because remember, she has an appointment and it's 6:03. But you can finish if you want. You had something to say, I can see.
Did you have something, Will?
No.
Well, the highest form of philosophy is called aesthetics, and that is really the art and beauty of wisdom. And man, I really feel like I'm gaining a great deal of aesthetics.
Nice.
With
Beautiful.
all of you.
Another beautiful ending to this show.
All right, she really has to go, so somebody close out the show.
Plus, I gotta get these
Thank you,
contacts
everybody,
out.
for-
They're killing my head.
Thank you, everybody, for your time and attention, and we certainly appreciate your support and comments and continued allegiance to this show. We have no intention of stopping at this point. At least I don't. And
Oh, we love it.
Looking forward to much more.
We love it as much as
We're-
Tony McCarty loves it.
We're here on Mondays and Wednesdays, and we try and make it better each time. So hopefully you'll come back. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Stop waving, press the button.